Hello. Well, a couple of years ago I did a YouTube video about getting a 8mm tape out of a camcorder that had broken down and wasn't able to eject it itself. Well, here we are again, different camcorder, same problem. Let's have a look at this one. So this is a different model of camcorder, and the owner has already taken the door off here. So we have the door and the screws, and then gave up, so which was wise. So let's see if we can get this tape out. There's a battery already on this camcorder. Presumably it is a dead one, but the first thing to try always with these things is to see if I can just power up the camcorder on the battery terminals and see if we can eject it, because it might just be a case of the customer didn't have the right mains adapter. So let's start with the easy thing. The battery is 6 volts, so we want to apply 6 volts positive on this side. Oh, there's already a screw missing from there. That might be telling us a story as well. Alright, I've set my power supply to about 6.5 volts with a high current limit. So negative there. I'm seeing no current draw, so we might have a dead fuse or similar. Well, let's flick this to player. Nothing from the viewfinder. Tiniest current draw. Where's the eject button? Oh, I've actually got the flashing display. There's a small display here. Let me show you that again. I don't know if you can quite see that display is flashing zeros there. So there's a little bit of life in this. So maybe just enough for us to hit eject. Where's the eject button? Oh, there's the eject. There's eject there. So reconnect the battery terminals, pressing eject. No current draw and nothing happening. No deck functions working, even though it's flicked into the player mode. Nope. Right, we're going to have to go for the powering the motor approach. Let's see how many screws are already missing. So there's that one gone. Oh, these are gone too. So actually someone's had a bit more of a dismantle than I thought. Alright, we're aiming to get to the loading motor, which may be about here, but it could vary from one deck to another. Right, we need to take at least some of these screws at the bottom. Okay, it can be the case with Sony camcorders that it's not sufficient to take off the panel you want. You have to take off another panel as well in order sometimes to release the optical block in order to get it apart. So let's dismantle some more. Okay, those two screws under here were longer, as is the one at the top. Aha, release the front there. Button fell off, which is in here. Now can we get to the loading motor? It doesn't look the easiest to get to on this one. There's a screw there which I may just about be able to get to, which may release some of the metal work. Right, does that get us any further? There are screws down here which look like they may be for the deck. So let's take those off. It's going to get harder and harder. I need to remove the whole of the cabinet, I think. I didn't need to make them quite so difficult to work on. So we need to find out what I still need to remove in order to take the deck out. So this great big screw here was a really important one to take out in order to be able to take this side of the cabinet off. You have to unplug some things as well as you go. I did look at the service manual and it wasn't particularly easy to understand. Having done that, we're not actually an awful lot closer, are we? Okay, so I've unplugged this from the bottom connector here. That's given me a little bit more room to work. But I'm still not much closer to finding the loading motor that should do loading, the lace and unlace and eject. It's a bit hard to even find where the motor is. If I could see where the motor was, then maybe I could just find where the connector is and power it. It's likely to be a connector like that one there. There's a red and white wire there. It's going to be something like that, but I can't identify where it is exactly. If only the service diagram, the service manual, I can't download it. I can only see one page at a time, which is taking me an age to fight my way through. If I could download it, I could look at it properly and find out where the connector is for the loading motor. Well, I think that might be the connector. Let's have a look. Can I unplug it? Really awkward to get to. It's not really in a position to unplug. I may have to pull it by the wires, which I didn't really want to do, but I may just have to. There we go. Right. I'm going to take a punt that that is the motor. Let's power it up and see what happens. I'm going to try about 3 volts on that. Don't know which direction I should go. Okay, that has worked to an extent. It is now in the unlaced position. That's with the black wire here connected to positive, has got it to the unlaced position. But I don't think on this particular DAC that's going to eject it. Let me just lace it back up again a bit. I'll show you that. I'll get you set up so you can see that a little bit better. Plus to the black wire did the unlacing, and it almost ejected. I'm going to increase the voltage a tiny bit. So I'm going up to about 4.8 volts I've got on there, because now we've got the right position. Maybe that's what it needs. Maybe it needs a little bit more voltage to spin the motor up properly. So here goes. Let's try go for unlace. It unlaces beautifully but doesn't eject. Sits there taking 300 or so milliamps, but it's just not going to eject. So it may be another motor that carries out the eject before, the release of the cassette. That's a nuisance, isn't it? Try that again. I'm going to try a little bit more voltage. So I'm up to 5.5 volts now. We'll go lace and unlace again. So back to the lace position, or at least partly. That sounds like the right speed that time. It was a bit slow before. Okay, let's try unlace and see if it does eject. If not, then I'm going to have to find a way to eject the tape. Almost. I think it's just catching on something. Yes, it feels like it. Ah, there we are. It is ejecting. It is. Oh, good. Right, now we do have the problem that the tape is, of course, around the deck. But at least now we're getting it out without doing any more damage to either the tape or the machine. There we go. Minimal tape damage. Good. Now let's try to put the camera back more or less as it was. So if I close this down here, I'll power this and hopefully it will lace up. So now it will be red to the positive terminal on this. Good. That means it will go back in its fully laced condition. I can try to start reassembling all this nasty cabinet work. First thing to do is to reconnect the motor that we've unplugged. Then this bottom connector and these end ones. The battery terminals. Where does that go? Right, do not crush this one here as we're trying to put it together. So could I have done any less dismantling to get to that connector? And the answer is not much. I could have possibly not taken quite so many connectors off here, but pretty much what I did was the minimum. Okay, I'm colliding with the zoom control. What a silly thing. So we need to put the zoom control back to a more neutral position before putting the cabinet together. There we go. Now we can start refitting the screws on this side. Starting with this great big one. And now it should just be a case of reassembling all the screws that I've taken out, but there will also be the ones that the customer's taken out. I'll have a shot at putting some of the customer removed screws in as well. Right, that's gone pretty well. The tape's been extracted safely and the camcorder has suffered little or no damage. Now, the customer had specifically asked me to not damage the camcorder if possible, so that's what I set out to do and has worked quite well. This was much harder than the previous model of camcorder I showed you, where the loading motor was mounted on the top and the wiring was at the top, and just taking off a little bit of the cabinet work here was all we needed to do to gain access. Much harder to work on, but shows it can be done. If you were doing this in a destructive way, you really didn't care too much about the camcorder, you could probably get to those connectors at the bottom relatively quickly. Right, I hope you've enjoyed this. I'll do plenty more content on audio and video technology in the near future. Bye for now.